the optic nerves are going to be receiving sensory information from the eyes, specifically visual sensory information. We're also going to have three foramen here called foramen rotundum, foramen ovale, which is going to be oval shaped, and then foramen spinosum is going to be a really tiny foramen. Now, you're going to have to bear with me, but there's actually a story that goes along with this, and it's kind of silly, but it's about Ross the Turkish cowboy. Now, Ross is going to sit on this structure right here, which is called the Sella Turcica. And if you'll remember, Sella Turcica actually translates to Turkish saddle, which is a type of saddle that someone can ride a horse on. And so this is where he would be sitting. So if we were to just draw him in here, sitting on the saddle, his back would go up against this backrest right here, which is the dorsum sellae. And then his legs are going to drape down and go through these holes. Now, these holes right next to the Sella Turcica, where his feet would go into, or be where his shoes are going to be going through. And in order to ride, he's going to have to lace his shoes up. And that is actually called the foramen lacerum. His arms will go up this way. And if one is riding a horse, you actually can steer the horse using reins. And if he was holding onto reins, they'd be going through these holes right here. And so if he were to be controlling this skull with these reins, these would be with the optic canals, as our eyes help us steer where we're going. And then if you'll recall, his name, Ross, that actually helps us figure out these three foramen here. R-O-S for foramen rotundum, which is this one right here, is this first one in this sequence. This oval-shaped one, which you can see right here on the other side as well, is foramen ovale. And this very tiny one right here is foramen spinosum. Now, I know that's a little bit of a stretch, but that's going to help us remember all of these structures, as when we look in here, there are a lot of holes in the skull, lots of foramina. But if we stick to that story, we knock out this entire section right here. So it's a pretty easy story to remember just because of how silly it may be, but it helps us remember some of these structures. Now, moving on to more specific features of the sphenoid bone, the greater wing is going to be the bigger portion of it that sticks out laterally. The lesser wing is going to be articulating with the frontal bone, and they're going to be smaller. We also have something called the sphenoidal spine. This can be a sharp point at the posterior portion of the bone, and foramen spinosum actually gets its name because it goes through this spine. We also have the pterygoid processes. Now, that word pterygoid means wing shape, almost like, kind of reminds me of pterodactyl. Pterodactyls fly, they have wings. So the pterygoid processes look like little wings, and hence their names. There's two parts to them. There's a lateral portion and a medial portion. So the lateral portion is called the lateral pterygoid lamina, or also you'll see it called the lateral pterygoid plate. And then we also have the medial pterygoid lamina or plate. So as we take a look here, we see our Sella Turcica right here. And the Sella Turcica is actually where something called the hypophysis or the pituitary gland is going to sit in. That is our master endocrine gland, which you'll learn more about in physiology. This back portion is the dorsum sellae. We see just a little bit of foramen lacerum here on either side, but again, that is formed by multiple skull bones articulating together. We see the optic canals right here. We see foramen rotundum, ovale, and then spinosum here. Now, sphenoidal spine is actually going to be this point right there that's foramen spinosum is going right through the middle of.